cried the sparrow.
You're listening to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we sit down with everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in and listening to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast. Today we have a sit-down with Marc, who was my captain on this last voyage. We did 16 days. 16 or 17? I don't know. We did over 2 weeks out into the Atlantic, braving the Bermuda Triangle, and aboard his Westsail 32. It was basically an offshore sort of coaching experience trip where essentially we're trying to grind out all the techniques and things like reefing, dealing with squalls, calms, heavy weather, all that sort of stuff, and it was an absolute blast. I can't thank him enough for having me aboard, and hopefully he found it very insightful. And the big goal here is to basically grow confidence so that adventures and sailing and all that sort of stuff are more enjoyable, more than anything, and not just a big scary thing that we have to go and try and learn ourselves, but something where we can kind of guide our way through it. But yeah, I'm going to keep this short. Hopefully you enjoy this conversation, our little debrief. If you want to help the show, check out the links in the description. There's a whole bunch of ways that you can help keep the Sailing into Oblivion podcast going. And big thanks to all the Patreon supporters out there who've been doing it for years. I really, really appreciate it. And we got all the rest. So please enjoy my conversation with Marc. All right. We are live. Steph's getting an action shot in there.
Podcast.
Nice.
Action shot.
Welcome to the show, Marc.
Hey, thanks. Great to be back.
Yeah, I know. Back on land, dude. That was a heck of a voyage.
Yep.
I'm still a little fatigued waking up this morning. I think sometimes actually the long duration of sleep, if you're not used to it, can also like make you groggy.
Yeah, right. Like, I'm even more tired when I woke up.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, I want to roll back over. But there's lots of work to do on this old vessel, and yeah, she did so well.
Yeah, impressive, huh?
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Really impressive. I mean, like I said yesterday, there were plenty of times where we were galloping. The rail is pretty much in the water, and just showing no fear. These old Westsails, man, they're great.
Yeah. Our last 24-hour run, the boat was eager to get back. It felt like,
yeah.
I mean, you could feel it just pulling forward.
Yeah,
it was pretty amazing.
Well, and it was right on the edge of like, if we had to have pointed any higher, we definitely would have been like smashing off of those waves. But boy, she just kept the bow right on them, and yeah, every time it was like we drop off, I was like, oh god, and then it just stayed nice and clean. Like, it was perfect, man.
Yeah, that was like a dream run. Yep.
Yeah.
Gulfstream boost. I saw 10 knots once.
Yeah, right. I saw high nines. I don't think I ever saw 10, but
yeah.
It was good. Well, how do you feel? You know, thinking, because I remember at one point I had said, I was like, all right, how you're feeling now, and this was in the first couple days. Hold on to that, and then look back on that later. And I don't know, can you sort of compare and contrast a little?
Yeah, I'd say the first 24, 36 hours, I had some apprehension. I was nervous, a little bit of pre-trip jitters. I think, realizing the commitment of, trying to quest for Bermuda, I think that's, kind of had me worked up a little bit. But really, after the first 36 hours, I just transitioned and felt comfortable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and just, I mean, I too always have sort of the butterflies, I'm like, okay, is the boat ready? You start questioning all that sort of stuff. But I do find that as long as you're willing to get out there and push out the inlet and then, sort of work the boat into shape, if you will.
Yeah.
That seems to, hour by hour and then day by day, all those sort of worries and anxieties start to ease right off because you kind of find that rhythm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't do Dramamine at all like I did last year when we did our 6th before we left. And then that drowsiness it brings on, I felt like I could never shake it last year. So this year I decided no Dramamine.
Well, you were hyper focused. I mean, I was having the lone sundowners. Like, you were just like, dude, no, this is about the experience, which I applaud. I think that's it's good, man.
Yeah, and as far as the Dramamine goes, so I felt a little queasy probably that first 24 hours, but looking back on it, like that queasiness kind of corresponded with the anxiety too, and both went away at the same time. So I don't know if like being a little apprehensive about the trip caused me to be a little queasy, or if the queasiness.
Yeah, well, it's all the same,
but,
like butterflies in the stomach sort of thing.
But it all went away together, and really, so after that first day and a half, I felt really good, and then definitely coming back, the closer you get, kind of the more excited you get.
Yeah, making landfall after that many days is always kind of, it's a special thing. Like, you get this feeling, but it is funny because when we're sitting there trying to get out of the Bahamas grip, and that wind is against us, and the current's against us, and we can't make any headway. It is so funny how easy it is to slip into, like, man, what is going on? This is not right.
Yeah, I know, to have such a great final leg once we finally got underway was probably all the better, just because of that 8 hours that we had to tack back and forth.
I'm a big proponent of that whole idea of, like, if you're willing to put up with the suffering, it's going to make the joy so much better. And like trying to keep that mindset so that when I am encountering the suffering, I'm sort of like, well, this is going to pay off. So let's load it on. But it's not, sometimes I just, the natural instinct is to basically just get mad and be frustrated.
Right.
But you have to like check it and be like, wait a minute.
We talked about it during the time we were being held up, that it's so rare now that we don't get instant gratification with what we're trying to do and accomplish. That was good. Like I mentioned that, this is good for me anyway, to be kind of forced to accept our situation. It's like traveling. I'm not one of the type who get upset when
at
flights
the airport.
Get delayed, because it's so out of your control. So your your flight gets bumped, you get canceled. You gotta just take it in stride, and that's kind of how it felt yesterday when we couldn't leave Freeport. I mean, we went south almost all the way to Bimini.
I know, the bank is right there. I guess we've got to tack. I just kind of was hopeful that shift was going to come, because I mean, multiple times this trip, we had to wait for a shift, and man, I should have turned this out. The host is getting rocked here. Jeez Louise. The wind shifts Marc is turning his phone off too now. Nice. Look at us, man. It's because we're sea weary. Our brains aren't quite tapped into podcast world. It's okay. I'll edit that out. No, I won't.
Yeah, right. Keep it all in there. Yeah. So
shoot, I derailed your what you were saying. But yeah, so we're out there. Oh yeah, multiple times on the trip. I mean, those wind shifts we had to wait for, and you're sitting there looking at the forecast, and then you're looking at the world around you. It's not adding up, but it's close.
Yeah, you always know you got to maybe wait a couple extra hours than what you're thinking.
Right. Because I mean, it is one of those things we like to think that the forecast is going to be pretty solid in the real short term. Like if you're just downloaded it, you're kind of expecting at least that day to be sort of spot on. But again, it's a forecast that is not 100% right and everything.
But when it kicked in, man, it was fantastic.
Oh, it was a beautiful
thing. We left out of the gate and we had a sunset.
Yeah.
And boom, we were out there.
And then just dodging those freaking container ships. I still don't. I think that one got me where I had to heave to. I think it was just when I'm looking at the AIS and it had switched from nautical miles to meters when I first glanced at it, because I think it said like 37. And I was like, oh, that guy must be like anchored or just holding position, because so many of those boats are holding position out there. And then the next thing I know, it's showing like, 0.2. and it's fluctuating, and I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm
He
looking at
maybe
him.
he just got underway or something.
It could have been, yeah. I mean, it was all pretty close.
But he actually he's showing
he's showing a spotlight. Yeah.
So that was first
like,
time.
Whoopsie.
Heave to and watch him go by.
Yeah.
That was cool though. I mean,
I mean,
had never considered that. That's a good maneuver.
Well, it was just one of those things where I knew if we stopped the boat, then the risk of collision, definitely nothing. We don't have to worry about it. And it was one of those things where, yeah, I mean, could have jibed, could have done a bunch of different maneuvers, I suppose. But if you stop the boat, then you can also sit there and take account of what's going on.
Right.
And be like, oh, shoot, like he's actually headed right for us. And then it's like, bring that jib over and start sailing, get out of the way. Or, well, fire up the engine. More than anything.
Right.
But,
right. Well, it didn't come to that. But, yeah,
No.
that's definitely the most stressful part, I think, is dodging the freighters and the oil tankers and the cargo ships.
Yeah, right. But, I mean, I do really like the old school method with the hand bearing compass and stuff.
Yeah.
Because especially when you're offshore. I mean, what did I say after we got past like the second day, I was like, all right, I'll bet you we only see 4 ships by the time we get to Bermuda. And I think we saw 3 maybe.
Yeah, right. And then
So
we turned around and it seemed like we were seeing maybe one a day. If not by eye, we could see them on the AIS.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was. Once you were out there, it was pretty mellow. Then we got back to the Bahamas, though, and
it's
busy
just
shipping
the
lanes.
beehive, man.
Yeah.
Golly.
I got one picture of the screen with like a dozen boats around us.
Well, and they're all, most of them are moving around. I'm glad that we tucked up into that sort of bite, if you will, on Grand Bahama, because then you're at least out of that heavy traffic area.
Yeah.
Because they're all trying to get to like Nassau, I'm assuming.
The cruise ships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It is one of those things. Did you find like that it sort of eased down a little bit? Because like every single time you encounter one, you got to like go through the steps of like, is it a collision course? Do I have to alter course? Do I have to call this guy?
Right.
And after you do that enough times, I mean, obviously, I'm pretty comfortable with these ships and stuff being around.
Yeah. I got more comfortable towards the end. And what I'd find was I just keep the screen on to see what this, CPA and everything was going to be. And a couple of times they change course. So if I have the screen up and we have, 30 minutes before we meet, and I watch their bearing and I see their bearing starting to shift, then I know that they're taking kind of the evasive maneuver.
Yeah.
Which, mostly I would imagine it's the small boats that move out of the way, but a couple of them did enough to where I never had to radio anybody, and they changed their course, I could change my course, I could see that our distance apart was going to be over a mile.
Yeah.
That's kind of like my comfort levels, like to try to be at least a mile apart.
Well, and yeah, I mean that one, I think a mile, anything under a mile, that's when I'm like getting on point. I'm sort of like, okay, well, because I don't like them to be that close. And there's sometimes that they have to be, when you're headed into like Charleston and going down the jetty, these things are right next to you. And even if you're on the windward side of them, they create a big pocket of high pressure when it hits that gigantic wall. And you lose all your wind anyway.
Right.
And yeah, it's kind of one of those where the more distance, the better, I
Yeah.
find for sure.
Yeah. Yep. So when they're that big and they're a mile away, probably sounds like a long way away.
Yeah.
But it's surprising
not.
how
It's-
close they
yeah.
look. They're like, wow, that's like right there.
It's like, holy smokes, okay. And they do sneak up on you. I mean, that's kind of the crazy thing. Like back in like the early 2000s when I first started doing the ocean stuff, it seemed like all these ships were doing like 18, 19 knots. And now the more modern ones, I think what they've done is they're just bigger because now they're like over 1,000 feet, but they're only doing 12 or 13. So it kind of
Gives you a little more time.
gives you a little bit more time. But I mean, if you have one coming up over the horizon and he's on pretty much a collision course or a close call, it's going to be on top of you within, I think it's like 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Which, if you put that into, distraction terms, like if you're trying to plot something on a chart, make a cup of coffee, doing it, use the head.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
You
you
miss
pop
that.
up, and that sucker's like right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't
Yep.
know.
It seemed to, the electronics are amazing. I mean, they show you everything.
They definitely help.
And when that's not there, the hand-bearing compass was definitely a great technique.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and it was interesting. I mean, on the tech note, I mean, it seemed like it was really only the ETA calculations that were obviously wrong on the B&G that we have. But the minute that starts happening, then all of a sudden I lose faith.
Yeah. I didn't really experience that. It seemed like all the ships I was tracking, it was all making sense to me. But
the our ETA, remember when it was showing like half as much time to get,
or 3 times as long.
Right. Well,
I had never used that feature before. It seemed like by the time we finished, though, it was reading
it dialed
correct.
it back in. Yeah.
So I don't know why.
But there was one point where, in the last bit of the stream, we were at like 27 miles out or something, or 37. I don't know what it was. But then all of a sudden it started climbing, and it was 28 and then 29. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah,
And
I didn't see that. But
yeah, I don't know. It's one of those, like, I think my point being that, sometimes these things, like,
you can't put you have to still be aware.
Yeah, and having those sort of foundational skills to be able to be like, okay, well, we don't have this anymore.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, with the battery issues, had that gone really pear-shaped to the point where we lost all juice, then it's like, okay, yeah, we're back to
right, paper charts.
Well,
you're plotting our course every 6 hours, I think, right? You're plotting on the map, on the chart.
Yeah, well, the chart was kind of like once, possibly twice a day, but the logbook,
right,
always, like pretty much every 6 hours. Which I'll take a shot of that and send it to you if you want to.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't know if you're gonna be able to read my chicken scratch though.
Yeah, no, send it. I'm gonna plot it all out on my chart too.
Yeah. That'd be cool. I was gonna leave that one, but then I was like, man, I don't have a chart though.
Well, yeah, you need that chart.
I need it
Plus,
to
you
get...
have 4 trips on it.
I know, right? Wow, I have that chart. In the past, I've probably owned like 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
Because of constantly using them over the years to get to the Caribbean, East Coast stuff, and I always ruin that one because it just gets so much wear and tear. But that's why I keep all these logbooks. Maybe one day, when I'm an old timer and I got all the time in the world, I'll go through my logbooks with another chart and lay them all down.
Yeah.
It'll look like spider veins all over them. But
yeah, I think that's always I felt like I feel like we, if we had lost all our electronics, we would have been fine.
yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, and, obviously.
And that's how you want to be. You want to have the skill.
You want to have that skill. And, I mean, it's not as though we didn't have all the backups, though. You did a fantastic job as far as making sure that we do have the systems in place for, like, a failure of the boat's electric system. We still have power with the power pack and its own solar.
Yep.
So, unless that one went out as well, we essentially could keep charging all the devices.
Right.
We could stay in communication with everybody on shore. We could download weather and all that sort of stuff. Right. And yeah, I have foregone that now for the last bunch of trips because I was always using those Goal Zero ones, but they would only last for like one trip.
Yeah, this one's a Jackery and it has a 100-watt solar panel.
Yeah.
And the battery bank is awesome, and it even has a 110. You can charge your computer.
Yeah,
that drains the battery quickly, obviously, but
right.
As far as the tablets and the iPhones, any 12-volt charging is fine.
No, and to be able to plug the Starlink in, that was great.
So Starlink, that was kind of a game changer.
A little bit opened my eyes for sure.
Daily. Well, we had the Starlink Mini, so it's not a constant mount, and it's a 50 gig service, so we're not streaming movies or anything, but basically...
Well, I'm not.
I wasn't streaming.
You weren't streaming them. No, that's right.
But the ability to get an updated forecast once a day gave me a lot of peace of mind.
Yeah.
Rather than having a model that's 4 days old, you know.
It does get a little questionable. I'm typically using the Iridium Go. I'm like every 3 days, maybe 4, depending on where I'm sailing, just to sort of save on the data. Because that's what plans, man. I wish they could just make it so much easier.
Starlink's got as easy as it could be.
Yeah.
You pay for it for sure. So $250 for 50 gigs of marine, which is like global. you know. But you can suspend your plan at any time.
Yeah.
And then reactivate it, and they'll prorate your days.
Right.
Yeah, I mean they make it. So yeah, I guess the irony of having Starlink is that we're also watching rocket launches and
I know,
satellite
right?
launches going over us to service the Starlink.
Just to get them up there, make sure everything's okay. Add more of them. I don't even know how many they have up there, but it's...
I mean, that's the funny part about sailing off the Florida coast is in the 2 or 3 years we've been here is kind of when Elon started ramping up his launching.
Where it's like one a week or something like that.
Yeah, so funny. It's like a sign of our times, you know. Here we are on this ancient, marine, system with paper charts and the whole bit, but at the same time, rockets are going overhead. And
it's like I'm trying to take a sight of the sun and the stupid rockets in the way. Don't they know I'm down here trying to do celestial navigation?
Is that like just such a contrast?
I know it is. It really is. But I mean, I think it's really a blessing and a curse in some ways. Because even as fortunate as I was to be able to catch like the bank fraud that was going on while I was out there,
right?
I'm glad that one for sure. But at the same time, there is like this disconnect that like when you plug in, you disconnect from that ocean world. And I don't know, for me, at least personally, like the longer you're in it and you're not linking back up, the more enjoyable or interesting it gets, I guess. Like the more you get immersed into it and become this sort of creature of the sea, if you will.
I could believe that. I haven't been at it long enough to, you're fortunate in that you started sailing before or just at the transition of GPS. I mean, you definitely have the paper chart, old school skills. And I think that would probably be the thing for myself is that I'm not going to neglect to learn the old school stuff because I'm not going to be over reliant on the technology.
Yeah.
But as a new sailor going offshore, I sure appreciated the fact that I could get an updated forecast.
Yeah. Well, and I do too. Like seeing it as a additional tool for safety, navigation, whatever you will. It's that's one of the things. If there's something that can make a voyage a little safer, then there's no reason not to, you don't want to be the I don't need
the
that.
curmudgeon.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
How was that? You had Starlink 24/7 with tons of gigs on map.
Oh, on Rutherford's boat. Yeah, that was the most disconnected from the ocean I have ever been in my life.
Because when it's there, it's probably hard to resist. Like with our limited 50 gig plan and knowing we just locked in once a day.
Right.
I don't feel like we abused it. Basically it was just communicating with Steph and the kids and everybody.
And then weather.
Yeah.
But yeah, on that boat, I mean, I was also in charge of uploading all the social media stuff for like their Instagram page and mine. And so there was like a constant flow. So I was definitely on there quite a bit. And yeah, it is. I mean, it's like the devil.
Yeah.
It's just there and it's
tempting you.
It's in your pocket and you're like, ooh, and it's like vibrating every once in a while.
With a crew of 8, you weren't worried about being distracted.
No.
Whereas with a crew of 2,
it's a little, oh, it's definitely more.
Take care of your emails. I take care of mine. Wrap it up.
We had our little session. Yeah, it was probably, how much time do you think we spent doing that each day?
I think I was probably, you were on and off pretty quick. I probably spent at least 20 minutes by the time I connected with everybody.
That's not bad.
No.
It's like 0.1% or 0.%.
Yeah. And like I said, we couldn't do it every day if it was too rough. Our system is, you got to kind of, there's no mount for that dish. So, we kind of prop it up and hold it. But we weren't taking it out every day if it was too rough. So we missed a few days.
Well, and even the Iridium Go, that one, when the boat's really rolling and all that stuff, and the mast and the boom are kind of in and out of the sky, sort of thing. Like, I won't do it. I'll be like, yeah, I'll wait until another day.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
I'd say for anybody who's considering a Starlink Mini, go for it. It's awesome.
yeah.
For me, it gave me a lot of peace of mind. I was glad to have it.
It's just one. I don't know. I don't know what my big hesitation really is. Like, I've been debating this for a couple years now, really, of like, do I want that out there with me? And I'm considering it more, I think, with longer trips than just the shorter stuff. Like, if I had it for a short hop, I think that wouldn't be too big of a deal. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like any other thing. You just gotta not
overindulge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, whether it's a Bush Light or
Yeah, right.
Starlink Mini.
Exactly. Well, what did I say the other day when we're just sitting there, like, going back and forth waiting? I was like, man, this is when you want to have a 6-pack of beer.
Yeah, right.
You can just sit and chat and let your woes go, and then all of a sudden the wind shift sneaks up on you.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh. But again, always consume alcohol in a very responsible manner.
That's right. Yeah, it was a dry trip for me, and I enjoyed that. It felt great, and felt great to come back and have a couple rum cocktails to celebrate too.
Yeah, those hit me. I mean, I think I only had 1.5, and then I was like, whoa.
I know, right? Because you had ran out of beer 4 or 5 days prior. So.
Yeah. So it had been, we were both kind of, our tolerances were down. But then all of a sudden I like kind of remembered, I have a logistical nightmare to deal with for the upcoming, the next like 4 hours. I was like, okay, I better throttle back.
Yeah.
Before I'm like, no, we can make it.
Mount Gay rum from Barbados.
Yeah, right. That stuff is powerful.
Yeah.
It'll get you. But yeah, that first one, man.
That was that's something to come in after that long away, and Steph was here to meet us, and what a great way to just like re-enter.
Yeah, I know, right?
We rinsed the boat off, which is the priority. She was salty.
Yeah, she is.
But then we refreshed ourselves as well, so that was nice.
Well, and it was kind of funny, like, we're entering, and then there's Steph on the jetty. And then we get to the marina. Oh, there's Steph on the marina. And then all of a sudden we pull in. She's right there. She's magic.
Yes.
I was kind of wondering if she was going to move faster than we do.
Yeah, that was pretty. That's always nice.
Any sort of highlights, lowlights from the last 16 days of voyaging out at sea?
Oh yeah, one highlight after another for sure. I think like we talked about, like you asked at one point, do I feel like I was getting what I was looking for? As far as is there more information? It's like it wasn't even necessarily needing like. I felt for me the quality of the experience was just the immersion of it and doing it, and my biggest question personally was like, how am I going to feel? I was concerned about sleep deprivation, but our 3 on 3 off cycle really worked. I always felt rested. I never felt beat down, and I was most pleased about that. Like I felt like I would have enjoyed to keep going.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like, oh man, I got to like get some rest. I always felt adequately rested.
Well, and that switch over during the day to the 4 on 4 off, I think that worked. Plus the thing that I didn't calculate in my head was that because there's just 2 of us, how that was going to sort of switch back and forth. Because like one day I would have 2 4-hour watches, and then the next day I'd have only 1 4-hour watch. And that, it was kind of like, it was cool to me because I was like, oh man, it's like I get my rest day, and then I got my day where you get your rest and I'm up here pulling the longer shifts.
Right.
And that worked. That was cool.
Did.
I was kind of shocked by that.
And then it rotated our 3-hour shift, so we were never doing the same dog watches day in, day out.
Yeah, right.
So it really worked. It was great. By throwing in the day shifts, extending them to 4 hours, that really like was kind of the key, I think.
I think so too. And I mean, I enjoy the dog watch once I've sort of snapped out of it and I'm up.
Right.
Because
exactly.
you get
once
that.
you wake up.
You get that nice little sunrise if the timing is right. And for us, Venus was just blowing up. That was great.
Yeah, first couple nights I thought it was
UFO or something.
I thought it was like a
Didn't you get me up to check it?
the first day I was like, is that a mast light?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because it was so close to the surface.
I hope I wasn't too snippy on that one. Where did he go? It was a star, man.
You're a little snippy at 4 a.m., but
Yeah.
I give it to you. It's hard to get.
Cloud.
It took, sometimes it would take 10 minutes to wake you up.
Yeah, well, hey, it's like I said though, that's
But when you did, you bolted right up and boom. It was game
I
on.
try and move quick for sure, but that's a testament to my belief in your abilities.
Yeah, right. If you're sleeping, you're not too worried.
Yeah, if I'm able to really conk out and get some sleep, that's
I mean,
proof's in
anytime.
the pudding.
Me too. Like you had to wake me up a couple times, and when you hear your name, kind of being right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
hard not
right.
to bolt up. Like what?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
just it's time to get up. No worries.
Yeah.
But then there were times like Mark, the tiller fell off.
Yeah,
Or the
rudder, yeah,
the rudder.
the hydrovane. Well, and that's one of those things too, because a lot of times, if you're sleeping on a boat and the other person up there has to do something, or the sail starts to luff, there's like an instinct to be like, oh, I gotta go check out, see what's going on. Well, in all actuality, you don't, because if something was going wrong that they needed you for, it'd be like, hey, get up here.
Yeah.
All hands on deck, that sort of thing. It's same with like the procedure for the man overboard. The first thing you do is shout man overboard, so everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And I suppose like if the sail started luffing like crazy and didn't stop,
You'd hear it
you'd
wake
get up and be like,
Is he
why?
still on board?
Yeah, and that's where you're like, oh no, they're not. Okay, let's turn around and go pick that
So
person
yeah, how
up.
about that hydrovane rudder? That was crazy.
Yeah, that was so I'll tell my part
Yeah, you set the context.
and then you can tell yours, but you got to really make it animated, because I have this picture in my head that I already believe 100% is true. But yeah, it just chilling and sailing, and we're moving well.
But the time of night, it was 4 a.m.
It was
in the Gulf Stream, or 2 a.m. It was like an hour after I had.
came
off
you
watch.
just came off watch, and I'm just sitting there. Everything's dialed in. We're moving well, doing like 6.5 knots. The seas hadn't built up, thankfully, yet.
Yeah.
Can you imagine doing that when it was like bouncing?
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. But in any event, it sounded like dolphins came up right behind the boat, like whoosh, whoosh, and I kind of caught a glimpse of what appeared to be some sort of little fin or whatever. Boat's still sailing just fine. And I'm kind of like, oh, what's that? And then, 2-3 seconds go by, does it again, and I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, and initially I was just like, oh, I want to see these fish or whatever. And then the sail starts luffing, and I'm kind of like, oh, and I had the headlamp, and as soon as I saw, I was like, oh my gosh, the rudder blade off the hydrovane is now dragging behind on its safety line, which kudos to you for having that tied on there.
Well, kudos to
Jeez.
Hydrovane, because Will at Hydrovane, he's like, make sure you tie a safety line onto your rudder.
Yeah, I mean, geez Louise. I there's one on Sparrow, but it's kind of. I have a spare rudder too that I can clink in there if I needed to. But
Right.
but-
so what? Yeah. So what did we determine caused that? What do you think? I mean, we don't know, but so it's a pin
yeah,
through the shaft, and then there's a cotter pin to hold the pin in place.
right.
And the cotter pin apparently backed out,
Yeah.
and then the pin over
Slowly
time
wiggled,
backed out.
yeah, through all that motion. I think because when I was looking at it today, we have the little plastic line that sort of tethers the cotter pin to the rest of it is behind the shaft. And if it was forward of the shaft, I definitely, when I scraped all that seaweed off, could have nabbed it, and that would have pulled it out if the cotter pin wasn't really like twisted
Right.
really well. But
So we don't really know how it happened.
we cannot point fingers. We cannot blame me. Erroneous.
What we decided is that it needs a ring ding.
Yes, something a little more,
not a cotter pin.
little less apt to be able to pop out of there.
Yeah,
I think that
but
would work just
man,
fine.
it really was sobering to me because like afterwards, I was like, what if that would have happened 8 days out? Oh my God, you know. Well, first we tried to heave to
Yeah.
to address it, but the boat was still moving, and then you suggested let's just drop all the sails.
Yeah, just to slow, because that, when you're trying to manhandle that thing, it's 3 feet long or whatever, and so any movement of that water is going to throw, because it's also
Has to be-
hydrodynamically designed to
Oh, yeah.
just be efficient, and
It had to be totally lined up to get put back on.
it floats, doesn't it?
No,
Oh, it doesn't float.
no.
Oh.
It maybe it's
Like
negative.
neutrally buoyant
Yeah,
or whatever?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and so, essentially, as soon as I saw that, I shout for you to come on up. I'm like, the hydroplane, da, da, da. And you come up, and at that point, like, that was where I had my Captain Ron moment, where I was like, because if you're familiar with the
Captain-
movie,
All right. What, yeah.
towards
I'm
the
trying to see
end,
the parallel. I've seen that movie a ton.
when the pirates come, and again, Captain Ron is being like revered by the family, and the husband is like, taking a side to everything, and he's super jealous about whatever. Essentially, that was one of those where I was like, oh, I'll fix it. And then I was just like, wait a minute, no, throttle back. Because Captain Ron, when the pirates are coming, he fakes a leg injury so that the husband has to go up and deal with it and become the hero and all that sort of stuff. And I mean, obviously there's differences, but there's parallels. I was kind of like, no, I'm going to let Mark do this. He's got this. I mean, because I always loved that sort of stuff, trying to fix the thing and do the thing that everybody else is like, there's no way we're going to do that. So I was like, all right. And you just jumped right into it, man.
I never would have expected you to do it, I mean, I knew if it came to it, we could each do it.
I probably could have done it.
But I was never
twice
even-
fast, maybe. No, definitely not.
No, I never hesitated about the fact that I had to get fixed,
Yeah, but the fact that you weren't like, dude, do you want to fix it? Like, you just hopped in. I think that person that I saw is somebody that's been created, over the past bunch of voyages where it's like, no, I'm on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. Like, there's no question, because when you have somebody else there who could take care of something like that, because I've dealt with all sorts of issues with Mongo, and I don't know, it's like, yeah, dude,
No. I mean, the
legend.
only safety
master seaman.
The only safety concern I had was what if because I basically had to climb overboard and sit on the struts so I could reach
Getting
down.
Doused in the water.
But my concern was if I slip and fall off.
Yeah.
So we floated the safety buoy, the life buoy.
See, I wasn't worried about that.
Me falling off. Yeah, because you were on deck.
Because I'm on deck,
Yeah. So once that was in the water trailing behind us, I felt like, well, if I do slip off, I'm going to be able to grab the buoy.
Right,
You know, that was the only thing. That's the only thing I questioned before going overboard. Is like, well, I need something. I was either going to try to figure out a way to harness onto the boat, or I didn't want to take the time.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's just float the buoy.
Well, and I think that is also one of those things that's super important, when you're dealing with kind of these crisis or triage situations, like not just blindly going forth into like, oh, I'm going to fix it, and just like jumping overboard. And all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute. It's taking those few seconds to think, okay, well, how else can we make this safe? Like, what steps should we take before we do that? Obviously it's maybe different if you're trying to push somebody out of the way of a car or something.
Yeah.
You have to do that instantaneously. But, these things on boats, typically a little forethought goes a long way.
Yeah. Well, anyway, once the process was initiated, we tried it while drifting, hove to, and then you were like, okay. I was like, it's not working. We're moving too much.
Yeah.
And then you were like, okay, let's drop the sails. That definitely helped enough. We were more or less stationary. Then we were just bobbing.
Well, weren't you like, dude, let's turn the engine on and put it in reverse? And you're dangling there.
Feet there.
I was like, I don't like that one. But we're spitballing. We're
Right.
just trying to figure it out.
Basically, we were like, how do we stop the motion of the boat?
Yeah.
So anyway, we stayed in place, but we were bobbing. Then it was just a matter of just hanging on as long as I could until I could get it lined up, and then have to rest for a minute and then do it again. It probably took 20 minutes to a half hour by the time we got everything put back together.
Yeah. So we didn't lose much time, and I think we had mentioned too, like, had we not been able to do it, or for whatever reason the thing became untied or whatever, and we lost it, all that meant was we were going to have to hand steer.
Yeah.
So, I would think in that case, we would have probably switched to doing like 2-hour watches or something for the rest of the voyage. But boy, that
would have been rough.
That would have been brutal. Yeah. Westsail's tiller, how can I say this nicely? It's very heavy. Like it's a workout.
Yeah.
To be
when
able
the sails
to,
are balanced, it's pretty true. But if there's any weather helm, I mean, think of it. Tiller steering a 20,000-pound boat.
Yeah. And galloping over, 4 to 5 foot waves in the Gulf Stream. Oh man.
Yeah.
I on the trip, the first voyage of Mighty Sparrow, my dad and I went Jupiter down to the BVI, and we went through a force 9 gale. Only lasted maybe 12 hours or something.
Only 12
through the night. Yeah. Well, so it just didn't build things up really big, but I helmed through the night just to see what it was like, and I was definitely sore the next couple of days, my shoulders and stuff, and we were running with it, so there wasn't a huge amount, but just trying to muscle control the boat. And I think talking to somebody was like, dude, you ought to put bungees on either side just to arrest the motion. And I was like, that doesn't sound right to me, but then I learned how to use Mongo a whole lot better. And
well, these self-steering systems are fantastic. I mean, I like the Hydrovane. I don't have experience with anything else, but it was recommended to me from the get-go.
Yeah.
By Captain Jack, and so we ended up naming it.
Well, Captain Jack and I are going to have words one day. No, I think it does. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, I see it on the Round the World boats and some of the different races, and it's not just because they're sponsored.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, and truth be told, I mean, Peter Lawless or Pat Lawless, like one of the two brothers who was doing the 2022 trip, he had to bail out. Something broke on his Aries, and he made a video that sort of points it out. I still don't understand what part actually broke, because they're pretty bulletproof, but obviously not 100%. So
nothing is going to be 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it all can become pear-shaped. I mean, I told you I almost lost the original Mongo when one of the struts sheared off, and the whole thing like tilted 90 degrees in the middle of the night.
Right. I mean, I have a huge spare parts kit for that, and I have I don't have an extra, I don't have an extra wind vane, but I have a wind vane fabric for the frame.
Right.
And
I mean, you could make it out of a freaking bed sheet if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Anything in a pinch, really.
Right. But yeah, we've, then we had battery issues, and I don't know if it's because we're in the Bermuda Triangle, but you saw.
Got a little
it was kinda
weird.
because first you saw a UFO.
Yeah.
And then the batteries drained to nothing.
Well, it was a cluster at what they call a flop of UFOs.
And then, so it was UFOs, our electronics went haywire, and then I think we saw Sasquatch out there.
There was no Sasquatch. But just for my listeners, because I know I'll get emails if I don't explain. So what I saw that night was essentially over the, I believe, northern horizon were very bright lights that would equate to like Venus or Jupiter. So bright, really bright in the sky. And they would come on and 2-3 seconds and then go off. Slow fade. But there was a cluster of about 7 of them in an area, the size of your fist if you hold it out, on the backdrop of the sky. And it went on for a while. And yeah, it didn't, they weren't moving per se, but one would go and then 2 or 3 over here would go and blink on and blink off. So I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But it sure as shit wasn't normal.
Yeah.
Oh, I just swore on my own podcast.
Family friendly.
Yeah, right.
It's probably Elon.
No, dude, I've seen Elon's Starlink. I know the difference, but who knows? There's so much weird stuff up there with all the different satellites that are up there.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that image of like all the things they track that is going? It's like it looks like the Earth has fuzz on it. There's tens of thousands, if not
Yeah.
more. Really.
You know what's crazy is when Steph and I did a Grand Canyon trip like 5 years ago, and while on that trip, we saw his initial launch where he launched 12 at a time
Oh, really?
from California
Oh, wow.
or Texas. I'm not sure where they came from, but we witnessed
The birth.
the birth of
Starlink.
Starlink satellite. And we actually at the time we had real mixed feelings, like, oh my gosh, that's kind of strange to see this train of 12 satellites crossing the horizon.
Yeah.
It was like a moment where we realized, things have changed.
I only saw that, I think, twice in my life, where you saw the string of them.
Yeah.
And I did remember looking at that and being like, if those are like lights, I don't think they're lights. I think it's reflection of sunlight that shows them off. Because I was like, man, so does that mean in the future there's going to be a line in the sky? And that, I think, would just be a disservice to humankind, really.
Right.
Where
But
you're
that
like,
was
what?
just the launch. So I guess once they're orbiting,
Then they go pretty much dark.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But hopefully there will never be
Can you
like a
imagine
line
though,
up
the
there.
number of them that are out there, though? I mean, there's so much.
God, I have no idea how many. I'm sure you can look it up, but yeah, and he's just going to keep throwing more of them up there.
Yeah, global Wi-Fi.
I would assume that essentially, if there's an end game, you just basically populate the whole thing up there and take over the communications industry.
Yeah, who knows?
Just be like, well,
Here's two guys who know nothing about it.
I don't know. Our
Throwing-
opinions are valid.
throwing
They're
out theory.
valid.
There's people listening who are like,
Yeah,
what
right.
do you guys know?
I'm like, yeah, I got other podcasts for that sort of stuff. Yes, you do. But yeah, I don't know. I obviously have to go and do a bunch of stuff, but like before we wrap up, like I think from my own opinion, watching, and it's like a personal joy of mine, watching somebody like yourself go from, okay, how do we do this again? And none of that to just basically doing things like reefing and changing sail plans and moving around, doing like making all the choices, and watching that progression is such a cool thing.
Yeah.
And it fills me with this. I like to sail. I like to go on the ocean. I like Westsails, all that sort of stuff. But for me, what I really get out of this is being able to see like the confidence rise, the enjoyment level rise, and kind of introduce this experience of these offshore trips. And I mean, you fulfilled every one of those things on this trip.
Wow. It's kind of nice to look back at our history, because after Steph and I first bought the boat, some people have heard the story, some people haven't, but I found you on the internet while researching Westsail 32s. And
Yeah.
then once we took delivery of the boat, I contacted you for like a week of just instruction, and that you were willing to do with us, which was great. That was year one. Then the second year we did our 6-day circumnavigation of the Bahamas, and Steph and I learned a ton of skills there.
Kicked in the teeth.
And then then to have our third year be a 16-day offshore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a great progression. And it's like, as a new sailor, I mean, of course you want an experienced crew,
Yeah.
And then with your experience and your demeanor, and I think that was a lot of why I felt comfortable out there, as I knew, obviously you're experienced and capable, and then I was feeling, all in. So I felt like we made a strong crew.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, and the fact that like every time I was like, I think I'm going to put a reef in, and you're like, I'm on it. And you just like, whether you were on watch or off watch or any of that, like that was pretty cool. 'Cause that, I don't know, to me that meant like, oh, okay, yeah, you like this guy really, he wants to get every little ounce out of this as much as possible. And I mean, that repetition shows, because literally, like, by the end of it, you're whipping those reefs in so fast.
Yeah.
And then, that when you think about it, it's like, well, shoot, now when you see those squalls,
Yeah.
it's only going to take a matter of minutes, if that, to just throw a reef in, and now you're prepared for it and good to go.
Yeah. All that repetition pays off. And, I think one of the biggest takeaway, I think I declined to do the third reef at 4 a.m. when the height of the squalls, partly from having just woke up, still being a little fuzzy headed, and the sea state was so dynamic.
We're getting bounced.
But so one of the reefs, I deferred to you, but every time I went out there, I realized that the center of the boat is where it's the most stable. Like
Yeah.
it looks like, you do have to cross a heaving deck to get to the mast, but with the mast pulpits and that location in the boat, once you're there, it's actually feeling pretty secure.
Yeah. Well, and I think I said it like the view from the cockpit sometimes is scarier than actually being up
out
there on the
Yeah.
mast. And
Yeah, because the boat's rotating around that point.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's the most stable point.
And it just, I don't know, once you get that reef in, the boat just settles so much, and it's such a relief.
Yeah.
Until then, the winds pipe up more, and
then you
it's
gotta
like,
do
all
the
right,
next
do the
one.
second reef. All right, let's do the third reef.
Yeah.
But,
So over the summer, I brought my sails to a sailmaker in Fort Lauderdale and had a third reef put in, and I'm so glad I did.
Yeah. And that is a deep reef like that. That will come in handy. There will be one day, I'm sure, where that becomes like the savior up there, and you just be like, dude, I'm so glad we have that.
Yeah. And I was glad we had it when we used it.
Well, so what's next?
What's next is getting the boat prepared for summer storage in Indiantown Marina, and then Steph and I are headed west again for a summer of work in the lovely state of Montana.
Nice.
And we're looking forward to our trip out west. We've been living out west and in the mountain for so long that when this time of year rolls around, even though it's been a great sailing year and a year in the tropics, we're still very excited to get back to the mountains.
To the mountains, yeah. Well, and I think, the more we talk about some of the past trips, down to the Andes Mountains and all that, we got to do a podcast about some of these first descents on tele skis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that's going way back.
way
but,
back, but that stuff is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Climbing all those mountains down there and then freaking tele skiing down them, and I don't know, man. That world has always fascinated me. It makes me nervous for sure, but like that's some cool stuff. Those are some neat adventures. We need to delve into a couple of those.
Yeah. Well, all that led to here because as you get older, I mean, of course, I could continue to stay committed to climbing and skiing forever.
Right,
People
right,
do
right.
for sure. But as I got older and kind of lost, a little bit of just the physical stamina, and I felt like satisfied, like I had done all the climbing and skiing that there's always more you can do. But
Yeah.
I've always been eager for this sailing stage. It was always a plan.
Oh, it was kind of in the back of your head.
Always,
Oh, okay.
I always figured when I was older, I'd get a sailboat.
Right.
And experience the ocean.
When I'm grown up, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get a sailboat.
Well,
Well,
and really the one thing about Florida versus Montana, I mean, Montana has just barely more than 1 million people in the whole state. Florida
Really?
Florida has 21 million.
yeah, there's a lot of humanity
And
going on
so
down here.
When we're here, it's challenging just for that. So to get offshore, that is the true wilderness. I mean, the ocean, the empty ocean,
100%.
very powerful. So the biggest skies I've seen, definitely the most remote and isolated I've ever been was this past trip.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You do. You get pretty far out there, and then like I said, even though the view doesn't really change all that much, there's some reason I can just stare at it all day long.
Yeah.
I love looking at the clouds. I love looking at the waves, and obviously the stars, freaking amazing. And to have the moon on this trip was a godsend. Like that's like, I put out a picture from one of the squalls under that moonlight, and man,
Yeah.
it's just like, ooh, that's going to really suck. But I'm glad I can see it.
Yeah, at least you see it coming.
Yeah, right. So,
Yeah, these trips are like the highlights are sunrises and sunsets. It gets a little redundant when you go through your photos and stuff, but the sky is always constantly shifting, changing, the play of lights and clouds and sun. That's fantastic.
yeah, it's not too, there's not really, besides what happens to my intestinal tract when I eat too much cheese and the effervescence that are produced via that exchange.
It's nice
There was a couple days where I was like, I'm up there.
Thank
and
goodness.
It's eddying down below. Get the gas mask out. But now it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure yet again, and I can't wait to see where we go again. Hopefully, we get you guys out on Mighty Sparrow at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe next year. We'll have to sort of see how things
Right.
go. But
Maybe we'll end up both being down here with our boats next winter.
yeah, wouldn't that be cool? A little tag team action for
Yeah,
sure. For
yeah.
sure.
All right.
All right. Well, we got to wrap this up because I got to get back out to the high seas.
Okay, man. Well, safe journeys and awesome. What a great experience.
Sounds good.
I would encourage anybody who's wanting to gain some skills and have some mentorship to definitely seek you out because 100%.
No, well, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Coming from our first graduate as a ocean passage maker, I'm going to make certificates. I am. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do that this summer. That's going to be a project of mine. But then you can frame it and put it on your wall.
Yeah.
Remember
right.
our times together.
Yeah.
All right, Mark.
Thank you.